Thank you so much, Hans, Malene, and Team Klubben for the invitation, for setting this up. I'm very excited to share my visions and to share the Street Racket philosophy and concept with you to hopefully make an explosion in the Nordics, a positive explosion of movement, learning, joy, and also strong communities. I will guide you through my basic ideas. Now I have to disappoint you in some way to get started with. We have more than almost 2,000 activities, and 45 minutes will not be enough for that. But you will, the main thing is that you will find the courage to start with Street Racket, and you will undoubtedly do that. And then once you get started, you will be very good at it. I'll promise you, you can't do anything wrong, really. And then the kids will even help you to improve the concept and to work on the concept, to bring their own ideas into it. And once you start working with Street Racket, you will be inspired in many ways. I hope it's the case with you too. And a lot of things will happen automatically. I will follow a PowerPoint presentation. As the founder and director of Street Racket, I'm creating most of the games. A lot of games are also created by the community. Hans has already contributed stuff, and so it's we're like a family. We're like a global family for active schools. So when you start working on it and you have great ideas, please share them with us as well, so we can take the message forward around the world. Street Racket was born through a bit of a communication problem, through a misunderstanding. I was supposed to teach table tennis in a developing country. At the time, obviously, I was not the guy running Street Racket globally. I was just a PE teacher, first of all, and then I was in charge of the PE system for the city of Zurich here in my hometown. And I took a break. And in that break, I was supposed to promote table tennis in a developing country, as racket sports are my passion. I played for 20 years in the Swiss national squash team. I played international racket sports. So I was sort of born with a racket in my hand. And I said, okay, no problem. I'll take that trip. I'll help you guys. It was a friend of mine setting up a foundation to support physical education in Dominica. So I went there with the goal of promoting table tennis. And then I discovered there were no table tennis tables on the whole island. So there was no infrastructure to work with. And that's how the idea was born. So it's quite a personal beginning. And then I realized we don't need infrastructure to promote active schools, to promote racket sports, to promote motor skill development, because we can just be creative and innovative. And that's how Street Racket was born. So obviously I didn't know they had no tables, and they thought I was going to bring tables, which I can't do on the plane. So it's just how life goes sometimes. So I will follow the presentation also in terms of cross-curricular learning, active learning, and we'll have two little cinema sessions, like about 6 and about 4 or 5 minutes, where you will be following some movies to get like live impressions of workshop, of kids being active, of what Street Racket looks like in practice. And I will tell you a bit more about the methodology behind it. And then we hopefully can go into some Q&A in the end. And then when you shut off your computers, you can start Street Racket straight away, outside of your doors, your homes, your classrooms, even in the aisle of your school building, because it's something that is very, very safe. There's no annoying sound to it. So no headmaster can tell you not to play. So tell them I say it's okay. All right. I'll just jump into the presentation to give you a first impression. Okay, here we go. So the goal obviously is to move the Nordics together with your help, with your passion and understanding of the concept. So this all comes from the heart. We have a lot of passion. We put a lot of passion into it, and we're doing it every day and every night across the world. Street Racket is in place in more than 100 countries already. We're moving hundreds of thousands of people, not just kids, also families, sports clubs, even for corporate health. It's a tool that is used by many adults and companies because it's so easy to set up. If you ever forget what Street Racket looks like, please think of me, think of today, think of Switzerland, and you're back in knowing how the court or what the court sort of looks like. The Swiss cross is the basic sort of icon of Street Racket, the cross court, but there's many, many more forms that we can play. Now, what we want to do is we want to give everybody access to motor skill development, to sports, basically for free, because you can even play with your hands. Of course, the equipment we developed helps a lot to be better at it, to be motivated, to have a better progression. But to get started, it's really a concept that is free of charge because there's no infrastructure involved. There's no maintenance involved. You don't have to buy a net. You don't have to do any sort of building on the courts. All you have to do is draw some lines, and that can be done with chalk by hand, with color to make permanent courts, with spray, with sports markers, with duct tape. There's plenty of ideas how you can do it. And if we should ever drop into a COVID situation again, Street Racket is a thing that can always connect people because we're physically distanced if we want to, not always, but we can be. And even if there's restrictions, we can still play. So Street Racket was one of the only games that was totally 100% fine with our government for people to play in schools. A lot of schools designed 2 by 2 meter squares where physical education took place. And we had those squares as a sporting concept. Unfortunately, it was not known enough back then because we're still young, but we're going to change that now, especially in the Nordics. So anyone, anytime, anywhere. That's what we stand for. That's what we do. You will see throughout the presentation that it's really a game that can be played for all, by all, no matter how old you are, what your playing level is, even what your physical or mental preconditions are. It's very integrative. It's very inclusive as well. And we have a thing called the progression where we teach kids to start with just using their hands and then slowly getting to know and master the racket skills. So this is from kindergarten to top athlete level. It's for families, but also for people with a handicap. It's for senior citizens and businessmen alike, because there's so many forms of movement and so many intensity levels where everybody finds their space. I think the bottom line is very important. It's a barrier-free approach to racket sports or sports for public, for well-being, for health, and for active learning, because it can be set up anywhere in a few seconds. Just so you understand the video is a bit better that we're going to go into just now. This is how simple it is to create your own playground, your own sports ground, in the schoolyard, outside the sports club, inside the hall, doesn't matter where, outside your homes. Just draw some squares on the ground and then play on those squares in many, many different ways. You can also play up against the wall, which is quite cool. If it's raining, if it's snowing, you can even use the school building. I know this sounds funny, but Switzerland has a lot of rules. I know the Nordics do too, but there's a lot of schools playing indoors, and you see that also in one of the movies. So it can be done within seconds. You're ready to play. It doesn't cost anything or close to nothing, depending on how you make the courts. But that's pretty much all you need to know to start playing. And this is the last sort of set of information you need to understand the movies a bit better. The reason why Street Racket is activating so many people around the world has also got to do with those two rules. I'm a big racket fan, and I know Hans and then people from Team Klubben, they're really good at racket sports, and it's cool to smash the ball and hit hard, and but the thing is, the smash kills sports development. It kills motor skill development. Because if you look at the practical side of things, if you think of yourself playing, of your kids playing, of kids in school playing, if you're good at making a volley or a smash, then you win the point. And if you're bad at it, you miss the smash and you miss the target, and you also end the point. So we're back to fetching balls, picking up balls. There's a lot of frustration. There's no flow. We don't really use the time for sports. And let's be honest, the Nordics and Switzerland were in a good position. We got 3 lessons per week, mandatory basis. But there's countries in Europe with 1 lesson, and even those 3 are not enough by miles. We should have at least 1 hour of PE every day. And then some kids don't engage with the sports club, so they just go home, they sit around in front of their computers. So when we work out, when we do sports, when we're active, it should really be an activity that works, that is successful, that is meaningful, that is motivating. And the smash doesn't help. So there's no smash in Street Racket. There are forums for better players that are very exciting, also for the tennis world, for instance, where obviously smash and volley have to be a part of the concept. But in the beginning, trust me, don't allow it. Play along those rules and you will find the motivation of the kids much better. So you don't downplay the ball, and you always let the ball bounce before you play it onwards in whatever direction. Another thing about Street Racket is that we can play 360 degrees on our courts. So you have to be watchful for all directions, which is great for your orientation skills, for all the factors that you need. And if you're just one-dimensional, like most racket sports, you're lacking certain skills that you need, and that's another plus. So with that in mind, sit back and relax. Malene will play a couple of movies, and then I'll be back here, and then we'll go more into the cross-curricular active learning side of things. But this is just for you to understand the basics of the game. Okay, have fun. So as you can see, it's set up in a few seconds. You're ready to play, and then you can choose your favorite game. There's games for big groups, small groups, individual players, 2 players. Up to 32 kids, like a whole school class, can be active on 1 court only. And we have the wall courts as well, so you can set it up in the aisles or in a garage. That's my family, by the way. Well, most of them. And you see the ball always bounces before we play back. And that's very important to get the rhythm right. And now this was recorded last week in a workshop with school classes. So you see a lot of things that go beyond the courts as well. This is what an active school with Street Racket looks like. And in most games we can include active learning. They're playing on a big dartboard, they're collecting numbers. So they're engaging with mathematical skills, with equations, multiplication and stuff like that. And this can be just recess, active breaks. And then I will show you how we can use the courts to do more learning stuff. These are little fabrics filled with chalk powder, so you can do your fundamentals with that. And this is the island game. So kids draw islands to play the ball into. And on the islands there are numbers and letters, but we'll get to that exercise in the next clip. Now they're working on language skills. This is an English class, actually. They're working on their English skills in English class in a social and engaging and very healthy way. So they're trying to find words and stuff like that. And then when kids are creative, they come up with new ideas on collaboration and cooperation. And any of these exercises, as I said before, they can be played by hand only. So you're part of the game, you're part of something. There's feelings of belonging. If you just draw one big circle on the ground, that's already a great exercise for fundamentals. and it becomes like a meeting point as well. So Street Racket in many schools is like a meeting point where kids run out for their next session in recess or during PE, of course, as well, or before and after school, after lunch, to help digest and feel lighter when you go back to school. I think we can stop this clip here and then move on to the next one. These guys are playing golf, by the way. We just put numbers on the trees and they hit the trees with the ball. And this is how it's done inside the schools. It becomes like a social and active hub. I'm not sure if it's shaky with you too. It's a bit shaky from my point of view, but it doesn't really matter. You get the idea. It's very safe to play. It's not loud. Anyone can join in. And if you're not good enough yet, you just use your hands and you're part of the game. Especially for small breaks or when it's raining or snowing, it's great to be able to exercise indoors because kids need that kind of movement on an hourly basis and not just once a day. It's not enough. Kids are not meant to sit around. And in this school, like every lunch break, after lunch, the kids are there all day. They meet up to play. It's also a very social thing. You get to know other people from school. You mix up with others. And as you can see, the courts, they don't use the space permanently. That's also very important. You can still play football there. You can still play basketball. You can still put a stage there if there's a school event. That's the big thing. If an infrastructure is taking its space, there's always a debate about it. What are we going to put there? Is it going to be a tree? Is it going to be a bench? Is it going to be a table tennis table? And with Street Racket, everything else is also possible. So there's never a competition for the space. It's just very meaningful extra use of space. I think that's the main bit. And then I think there's one more to go. This shows a bit the complexity of the concept. So maybe it triggers a lot of thoughts with you, what you can do with it as well in your setups. Maybe you're not just in schools or sports clubs. Maybe you have other ideas where this could be very beneficial to people. This is like the Swiss cross. There's games on the cross, but there's different court systems. We saw that one before from the other clip. Back to the rules. No smash, no volley. Please don't forget that when you start playing. A lot of different court structures. 3 squares, we call it a single court. 5 squares, we call it a cross court. And 9 squares are called a maxi court. Accommodates the most people, of course. And then we also have the wall courts. Now we're going to go more into that in a minute. It's very accessible, also with a wheelchair, for instance. Street Racket is always flat on the ground, and then you can use ice and snow as well to play, which is quite cool for the Nordics, I guess, like Switzerland. And the last movie now will show you, maybe you can just not start it yet so people can focus on that. The next movie shows if kids are left alone with Street Racket. They have great ideas. It was a group of kids, and I told them, look, I have 3 squares here for you. And please try and let the ball bounce. If you want, you use a racket. If not, use your hands. And this is what they came up with. 3 of them have never played before. They're all between 5 and 8 years of age. And I like the idea that kids can be totally self-sufficient. They can develop the games. They can play on their own. It's very safe. We put them in a good environment outside of their homes, on the schoolyard, and they are starting to be creative and work with the concept. And when you allow the kids to know about Street Racket, they will go home and try things. Not everybody. We don't have the perfect tool for everybody, but I think it speaks to a majority of kids because they want to play, they want to move, they want to invent. And the ball is always a friendly thing, as long as you don't hack it around each other's heads and you're getting frustrated because you can't play the ball back. So just have a look what they're doing with it. So he's acting as a coach. He's catching the ball and throwing it back to the girls, and they can have a go at hitting it back. And they've never played before, and they can hit every single ball. We do also have a racket for 2 players, which is quite cool to really collaborate, work together. And then everybody can try to be the coach. And this is to promote ambidexterity. And it's quite nice with that slow and controlled rhythm. We can really also work with the other side of our bodies. He's playing a lot of forehands now, but I promise you, he also played with the left forehand. They are 4 and 5, those 2 little girls, and they're doing really well. And it's nice that it's empowering. You know, they get a great feeling out of it. And this is how humans work. Yeah, when we're good at something, we want to do it again. And when we fail at trying, we do that later. Yeah, we do that later. I go back to the presentation. I just want to mention something. What I realized with Street Racket, how humans work. That's what I wanted to say. If we're good at something, when we try it for the first time, we have a good connection to the topic, to the equipment, to the game itself. It puts us in a nice and happy place. And let's say we go and play tennis and we don't know about tennis and we have a bad coach. We go home crying. I saw that a lot of times. We go back crying, couldn't hit a ball over the net, and I don't want to try again. So we're ruining the passion for sports and for movement. And with Street Racket, everybody has that good moment and they want to improve. They want to go back to playing. And that's also part of the philosophy. Okay, let me share the screen again. So you saw already that there's variations on the court with various ways of playing: single court, cross court, wall court. And this is how it all started. I just want to show you a few pictures of that time. Back in 2015, we had that mission. I was in charge of the PE system for Zurich. I helped my friend. And as you could see, it's all table tennis equipment, which, in my humble opinion, I'm not sure how many table tennis experts there are here in this webinar, but table tennis is really hard to play for small kids. And they also have to raise their arm higher than natural. It's fast, it's prone to wind, it's a small racket. So I think Street Racket could also help to improve the basics for all other racket sports, including table tennis. But my mission was to promote table tennis, and we couldn't do it. So this is how it all started. A few impressions. The Swiss government, at the end of the mission, paid $50,000 so we could build table tennis tables as well. So not only was Street Racket invented, but we also could leave 15 outdoor tables in the biggest villages behind, which was very nice. And then we started as a family to start, designing exercises. I quit my job for the city of Zurich. My wife quit her job as a lawyer, and we started developing Street Racket on a global level with all these games. And a Finnish-based organization called 100, the ED in capital letters stands for education, 100.org. If you don't know them, Google them or look them up. They're fantastic. They're promoting education around the world, but there's a lot of action in the Nordics. And we are awarded for the second time running now as one of the 100 most innovative and scalable innovations in education, not in sports, but in education. And that's what we're here for today, to see how we can link education to sports. Just a couple of examples, what 100 has done with us already. There's a couple of schools that have implemented through through the 100 organization. But of course, there's dozens of schools more in the Nordics already playing, and hopefully hundreds and thousands more in the near future. And ideally, this is what your school will look like very soon. Full of courts that are not a hindrance in any way. You can still drive through, you can still do anything else, but all the kids find spaces to be active. And even if you don't want to use it as a street racket court, sometimes maybe you want to play football games on it or handball games. But with those squares, there's so much that you can do. And then we also are getting more and more into the big educational organizations. Most of the Swiss universities feature Street Racket in their personal development trainings for the teachers, teachers to be and teachers that are already teaching, just to get more knowledge. And the campuses in Switzerland, all the universities have those Street Racket courts ready for the students and also for the lessons to play in. Also leisure centers, parks, there's a lot of street racket opportunities there. And what you see here obviously is not courts made of chalk, but it's permanent courts made with paint. I can only encourage you to have those installed in your schools. In Switzerland, we have more of those permanent courts than tennis courts in the country within only a few years' time. So that shows that it's really a movement that is attracting a lot of people to play and engage and be healthy. So hopefully you can manage to talk to the janitors, to whoever's in charge in your villages, in your schools, to get those courts painted. We can also very much encourage you to see if we can send a coach to your schools, or if you want to educate one of your teachers or trainers to become an official street racket instructor. That can be done in live sessions or online as well. There's an online training course because there's a lot of benefits for the teams of your teachers if you know what you're doing, if you know the potential of street racket. But even if you don't engage with that, you will have a great time developing street racket. And as I said, the kids will have great ideas as well. We will go back for the rest of the presentation in a minute. Now we're going to go a bit more into learning through movement. So you're going to watch a couple of movies where we don't just play street racket as a sport or as a healthy activity, but we link it to cross-curricular content. The first video will be explained, and then the other two I will make a live comment. So just make sure you get the sound and you hear the comments here.
On a street racket court made of 3
Electrolux 700 oppladbar støvsuger.
That's the best Hoover in the world. You have to buy it. It's fantastic.
Av alt støv. Electrolux for better living, designed in Sweden. Nå med opp til 700 kroner tilbake.
Identical squares. 2 players play a ball back
I think you have to go back again a little bit.
As a team, they try to reach 20. On a street racket court made of 3 identical squares, 2 players play a ball back and forth continuously. As a team, they try to reach 20 points as quickly as possible by hitting the targets with the numbers on the other side of the court. Hit by hit, the points are added up, and the new total is called out, always by the player who has just played the last ball. If a player misses the targets, no points are added, but the total remains. When a minimum of 20 points is collected, the team has mastered this challenge. Which pair can complete the task first? There are many other exciting variations of the addition game for you to try. The first variation is called Restart. You can only play until the ball misses the numbered squares. If that happens, you have to start again from 0. Can you still manage to get to 20 points or more? Another variation is the World Record Challenge. The rally and the counting continue for as long as possible. Who can get the new record by working great together? You can write your high score directly on the floor with chalk before a new attempt. In the team variation, you play together in groups of 4 or more. You can add more running and intensity if you play around the world style and you move to the other side of the court after each hit, or a little bit more relaxed as doubles, where 2 players per side always take turns after each hit. In the referee variation, a 3rd player outside the court controls the result and counts continuously, loudly or quietly. If a mistake is made, the players take turns, the referee steps onto the court, and a new attempt begins. The catch and throw option makes the task easier. The ball can be caught by hand and then thrown to the other player. No racket is in play. As always with Street Racket, the ball must also be placed in an upward motion when throwing, according to the basic rules. As an intermediate step, the ball can also be hit by hand, with the fingers slightly spread and tense.
Okay, just one more comment before we continue with the cross-curricular learning forms. The referee version, of course, you could also hand a piece of chalk to the 3rd player, and whatever numbers the players hit, he writes them down or she writes them down on the floor. So we have a giant, you have to understand the school board with Street Racket, the schoolyard as a giant blackboard. So whenever they hit a number, or it could be letters as well, you will see now, it could also be letters, and then we collect letters or we collect numbers. We write them down on the schoolyard, and then we can work with that, what we have played for. So it's just a bit like gambling money in the casino that you can win by placing the ball correctly. And then we always have the option with chalk to do the controlling. And it's not just controlling the game, it's classroom activities, classroom learning that becomes social, it becomes healthy, it's fresh air, it's natural daylight, which is fantastic for our eyesight because we're struggling with our eyesight because of digitalization. So when you do that kind of thing, you always have control of the game, and it's also to articulate the letters and numbers. It's to listen to the letters and numbers and to write them down correctly. So all that classroom work is done outside in a very child-friendly environment. We have to know how to articulate a certain number or letter. We have to understand the letter and write it down correctly. And then we can discuss about it. And we're only in small groups. And that is a big factor. When kids are exposed in the classroom, let's say they have to form a word in a foreign language or something, or they have to come up with an equation, there's barriers. Maybe they know they're not good at it, so they're afraid to articulate it out loud. They don't step up for themselves, they're shy, and there's no progression in learning. Learning has to do with making mistakes. But if I make the mistakes in a friendly, playful environment, having fun, then that's part of the journey. But if I'm being laughed at, and if I'm shy, and if everybody's listening, the whole class knows that I'm wrong, that's not how kids should learn. When we go outside and play and learn, it's a whole different story. And I can only encourage you to do that kind of thing. I'm sure you do, but maybe the math teacher doesn't, and maybe the language teacher doesn't. And you have to be ambassadors for healthy and active schools. It's your job to get more of that movement into this everyday school life, or even at the sports club. A lot of kids are exposed there too. So if we form small groups and work on these kinds of things, it really makes a difference. The next game is called the Street Racket Flower. I will comment it as we go along. So what happens here, this is a teacher's course. So we just paint a flower with chalk, and then we add a lot of leaves. It just looks like it could also be a tree. It doesn't really matter. I'm not a big artist, but and then we put letters or numbers into the flowers. And now we collect those points by playing the ball up and down, Street Racket style. So one player is collecting letters by bouncing the ball in the letters. And this is like the math flower. So here we collect numbers. Now, of course, kids would either do languages or math, but I just wanted to show you both options. So after about, you can stop it here, I think. So after about, let's say a minute or 2 minutes of collecting letters or numbers, you write them down on the schoolyard. So one is doing the activity, one person is the player doing the activity, one is watching and articulating the letters or numbers, and the third part of the team is listening and then writing down the numbers or letters. And then when you have that completed, you have your little blackboard on the schoolyard with your letter that belongs to your group, to your team. Then maybe you have to form a word or a sentence, or you find abbreviations, or you have to try to spell your name out of the letters that you collected. Or if you collected numbers in a math lesson, maybe the teacher says, okay, who's the first team to get me to 100 with using the numbers that you collected? So maybe I find the 4 and the 5. Okay, 4 times 5 is 20. And then I have another 5 times 5 is 100. So I got the 100. There's hundreds of things you can do with those numbers and letters you created. And the next video is the island game. It's got a similar philosophy. So we have a lot of islands, and we have to stand in one of the islands, like just hoops, and play it into another island, collecting letters and shouting them out to our team manager. And the team manager is sitting outside of the playing field. Usually it's groups of 3. So 1 manager and 2 players collecting letters, shouting them outside of the court to their managers. So you have to know who you're playing with. So everything that you collect, you write down. And then you have to form words. So every letter you use, you have to delete the letter. And then next to your blackboard, you start a list of words. And then in this exercise, they had 5 minutes to find English words. And the team with the most words formed out of the letters they collected won the challenge. But again, here, there's hundreds of things you can do. As you can see here, it's very easy to set it up. There's a lot of fun for the teachers. It's even more fun for the kids. And it's a great variation of classroom learning. And it also connects kids with physical literacy and all that. Okay, so I don't have much time left, so we'll go back to the presentation. And this is what an active school looks like when it's really being practiced. If the teachers are brave enough to get this started, this is what the schoolyard looks like. There's hundreds of ideas that we have, and we're happy to share them with you. You will get a lot of information after this webinar. We'll also send you a workbook for cross-curricular learning with Street Racket. It's like an ebook that we offer you as a thank you to participate here. And then we have created also the Ronnie Racket, Betty Ball, and Charlie Chalk. By the way, this is Charlie Chalk, the little white guy here. So as you can see here, they're very, very easy to understand, these exercises, especially with the avatars, you know, guiding the kids and the teachers through it all. Let's go to the Swiss cross on the right-hand side at the bottom. So there's a word like ball, and then you try to spell the word letter by letter going around the Swiss court, for instance. So it's all connected to simple hand-eye coordination-based movement or coordination skills. This is the Street Racket family. Now, for me, this is a very, very crucial setup. The 21st century skills, they used to be called life skills or contemporary skills. The 5C. Coordination, let's say sports and movement, cognition, cross-curricular learning, things for the mind. And then we do it always in a cooperative way. Street Racket is always based on cooperation before competition. We communicate a lot while we're working as teams, and we're being very creative, inventing our own games, changing things, changing the setups, changing the goals of the games. So the mighty 5C, the 21st century skills, they're always included in Street Racket. Also, there's a lot of ways to promote executive functions, but I'll let you go through the presentation in your own time. But if you color the chords, it's a bit like those small computers Simon says, you know, when you had to press the right buttons in the right sequence, you can do those kinds of games. And I just quickly want to show you, to wrap it off, this is representing a square where you play the ball into, okay? So you can work on precision with just designing settings. Like if you hit the plus, you win the rally straight away because it was a good, accurate shot. If you hit in the middle, you lose the rally. You can distinguish between left and right. That's a basic knowledge you have to know in school. If you work on the ladder, you work on your precision again. You go from 1, 2, 3 to 1, playing the ball forth and back as a team exercise. You can work with color and shape, get to know the colors, get to know your shapes, work with those, work with letters, work with numbers. If you put letters in the street racket courts and you play a ball back and forth, as we saw in one of the animated movies, you're also collecting letters. And the third team member can write them all down on the ground, and then you start working with it. And then you can do a lot of fundamental stuff just by using a circle or a hoop. It's done in seconds. And you can do team exercises. You can also fill the circles with content and then work with that. I'll let you go through this in your own time because I want to have some time for Q&A. But this is also very important to me that you see this. I hope you know the Sustainable Development Goals. This is the world community. We're all obliged to have that in our minds, and Street Racket is really helping here. Out of the 17 defined SDGs, 12 we can support or tackle directly or indirectly. You have this here in more detail. So if you're interested why Street Racket is so sustainable, you'll find a lot of information here. The equipment, if you haven't seen it yet, we have like 2-player sets, all with chalk balls in a small bag to carry it somewhere where you can draw your court and play. And then we have 2 school bags where Klubben is happy to give you a 20% discount for this webinar. This is what it looks like. And then we have a free app, very important. There's no cross-selling, there's no marketing behind it. It's just for you guys to get familiar with the concept. Share it with the families if you have communication channels to the parents, to the families. There's 100 games on it where kids can finally leave their devices, maybe take them in their hands for a good reason, but then leave them and play and go outside and play together with friends, family, neighbors. And this is a very, very good database for that. And then there's also a lot of project weeks that we do where kids design their own games, where they design the courts for the schools, where they come up with new ideas. Where there's a Street Racket song that you can translate in other languages. You can add lyrics and stuff like that to make it more versatile for a whole week. There's a dance as well and stuff. Couple of impressions, more impressions, and then we go to Q&A. So I'm done for now. I got 1 minute left, sorry. You're going to have to stick with us 2 or 3 minutes more, I guess. Please don't be shy. The last group, I think they liked it a lot, but nobody spoke to us. And so please speak up, unmute your microphones if you have a question, put questions in a chat. There's lots more that I would like to tell you, but I hope you got a good first impression. Yeah, let us know if you hated it, if it was okay, and if it was good. If you want to get started, and please let us know if you don't want to get started, why that is, because that will be the thing we have to work on.
Yeah, I think we have a question here, Marcel, in the chat.
No.
One thing I'm thinking about a little bit, Marcel, if you said the kids are usually very inventive when you let them play by themselves in a recess or so, and we saw an example of that. Can you maybe do you have some more examples? You said something about a golf, do a golf course and so.
Yeah,
rackets and balls. And do you have some more examples on that?
Like for instance, where I didn't show the golf. The golf is part of our program as well. But there were kids and they said, "Oh, can we just create a golf course? Can we hit those trees with the balls?" And I said, "Yeah, well, the trees are not going to be harmed with the balls. So how are we going to make a golf course?" So it was a school very close to a forest. So they decided with the teacher to just go in the forest and take a bit of chalk, and then they marked 18 trees like a golf course. So they marked 18 trees with chalk. You can perfectly paint it onto the tree trunk, and then they had to hit all the trees in that sequence. So they were outdoors. Outdoor learning is a big thing in international education. So they were outside. They were looking at the trees. There was fresh air. There was some mushrooms. There was other stuff, and that's also cross-curricular because there's a lot of things they learn when they're out there. And they decided they want to play a golf course, and they decided how to change the rules and how to team up and stuff like that. And then, of course, when we're talking about like a big dartboard that you saw in some of the movies, they said, we don't want to play for numbers. We'd like to make 10 concentrical circles. And in the middle one, we put a flag, just a symbol of a flag. So if somebody hit that flag, you had to shout out the country. And then they made a skyline of a city. So it was the name of a city. And then there was a hamburger. So you had to call out a certain kind of food. And then there was a glass of water. So you had to call out a drink. And then maybe somebody would shout a letter first. Then somebody would hit the ball. And then you had to shout out. It's like those board games where you just sit around the table and eat stuff and drink and, you know, not good for inactivity and obesity and all that. So they convert games they know from sitting around, and they convert them into sports games. And that, I think that is fantastic.
Do we have any more in the chat? I think we are running a little bit out of time, so I think we can answer a lot of questions by mail afterwards if somebody is interested. And I would just end this meeting a little bit, Marcel, by thank you very much for being here for 3 days and sharing the wonderful universe of Street Racket. And I mean, it's only 45 minutes every time, and there's so many things that you can share with us that you didn't have the time to do. But there's a lot of material on the internet, and we're going to send something out afterwards. So you will have like a start to find out all the games and all the activities you can do. So yeah, so
yeah, thank you very much, Hans.
If you don't have anything else to say, Marcel, we would like
I
to
just
thank
put my
you a
email
lot.
in the
Yeah.
chat. If some of you, if any one of you are starting soon, in whatever way, hitting trees in the woods, painting courts, getting the equipment up and running in your school, send me a photo, send me feedback. It's always great for us to see things happening, and that's what fuels our engines to pursue our visions. So like Jaco, Arctic Circle is involved. Okay, I would like to see that. So if you do start with Street Racket, let us partake, or let Klubben partake. They can share it with us, because that's what we're here for. That's why we were here this week. And if we see action and kids moving and teachers having fun and coaches having fun with the kids, that'd be great to see. So thanks for your attention. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Klubben, for setting it up, and good luck with your start.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Marcel, and thanks everybody for joining us, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.